Augie by reflection. And that's something about, I think that's something that you see in a lot of the young adult novels I like too, that you see characters observed in reflection, and a lot of the sort of core descriptions go to the other people. I felt like that when I was in high school, like as a person. I felt like I was watching everyone else, and that was sort of my job, my responsibility, and as a high school student was to be the observer and the cataloger, and so I like those characters as a novelist. And I also like people who are finding themselves, because it's an opportunity to talk about this weird time in your life when you get to sort of form your values at least somewhat on your own for the first time. I mean, you have a certain sovereignty when it comes to deciding what's going to be important to you that you've never had before. So, you know, when Augie goes through that, did remind me of some of the young adult novels I like.
What I loved about Augie March was that he was not, he's self-reflective but not self-absorbed.
Right, totally.
And he found himself in his community. And so if you take out the descriptions of the people, he describes all of these people in these kind of visceral, down-to-earth, almost ugly ways. And then it's almost a criticism, and yet he turns that around as he's describing them, because they're not physically beautiful people. And yet the descriptions become love, because he loves these people, and they're part of his life and his community. And I think that one of the things that I think that John does, and I try to do, is that I try to find, our characters are finding a way to belong in the world. Because it's a kind of disconnect. There's a kind of sense of we live between exile and belonging. And we want to belong. And yet we feel that the world that we belong to somehow rejects us. And yet part of that world also embraces us. And we live in that space of embrace and rejection. And I think that's the wonderful thing about writing YA novels, is because we so acutely feel those things at that age, that I don't at my age, but at that age, every rejection feels like, God, I suck. and
that went away.
But the other part is also really wonderful when someone loves you at that age. You feel that love. You really feel it, and in a profound way that's so tender and lovely, that just doesn't happen at a later age.
Yeah, someone said, I was reading some criticism of the novel, and one pretty well-known literary critic said that Augie never does anything in the novel. And I was like, well, that's not really true. I mean, he falls in love twice, and that's a big thing. You know, I mean, you know, maybe it's not going like he is going his own way when he's falling in love. He's just not going his own way when he's figuring out where he wants to live.
Let's talk about the women in Augie March. Augie, who actually has lots of jobs, he has to start working really young. So, many of them are illegal in nature. But he becomes utterly enthralled and is led wildly astray by the girl from whom he falls in love with. This seems to be a theme that you have each written about, especially you, John, about young men under the spell of smart and risk-taking young women. Can you talk about this dynamic between these sort of baffled young men and these goddesses they worship? And,
yeah.
You know,
I think it's interesting. It's a well-phrased question. I think Ben writes really great romance, but it doesn't approach it that way, right? Like both,
maybe.
but more of a person than certainly than Alaska or Margot are in Alaska and Paper Towns, and less of an idealization. I mean, I think I started out writing that way because I started out imagining women that way. When I was before I was published, when I was a younger writer, I just thought that really beautiful women who were really smart, and I thought that they were just more human than other people, that they were the most human people, that they were the expression, God's perfect expression of humanity. And I mean, that's of course massively diluted, and that's only got dumped over and over again. But I became really fascinated by the way that young men do that. We see a lot of the young women in fiction romanticizing young men. We don't see as often or at least we don't see it undermined as often the trope of what Nathan Raven called the manic pixie dream girl. And particularly in Paper Towns, I really wanted to kind of like stab in the heart that lie that there are these women who are more special than you are, and reveal that, like, the truth about people is that they're human, including girls. As foreign and as other as they seem. And I mean, I like that about Augie, is that he always, there is this sort of mystery about the women in his life, and he finds it harder to grasp them, I think, in some ways, than he finds it to get his head around the guys in his life. But for me, yeah, that's one.
You know, the scene in one of the big turning points in Augie's life in that novel was he can choose to help Mimi in her moments of turmoil, when she gets that horrible abortion that almost kills her.
It's an abortion illegal.
And he doesn't have to help her. He's not the guy that got his parents. He's just her friend.
Yeah, they're neighbors. And
they're neighbors, and he cares. And he loses his relationship with Lucy. It's his chance at getting married to the rich white girl, right? And he sacrifices that, and it's not a big deal to him.
Yeah, it doesn't. That's the best part, is that he's not like, I am such a hero.
Yeah.
No.
He's just like, I had to do this thing, and it screwed up my life, but but I did the thing.
Well, she was a person in trouble.
Yeah.
And yes, she was a woman, but she was a human being in trouble, and he chose to help her. And I've always, I think probably because I'm one of 7 children, we're all born a year apart, and I'm in between my two sisters, whom I adore, and they're really tough and wonderful and beautiful. I grew up in between them, and all of their girlfriends, and so I looked at women differently through their eyes, and so women were not. To me, they weren't these goddesses. They were these very real human beings who really kind of suffered. I would hear them talk, especially in my generation. They were like, guys really screwed them over. Yeah. And I listened in on their conversations, and I felt really kind of, I found their lives compelling, and they changed my life, because that's how I was positioned. So I looked at women very differently in my life when I was growing up than just sexual objects.
Yeah, that reminds me of, right at the end of the book, Augie's talking about how the people he admires the most are the people who refuse to lead disappointed lives, who, like, in spite of no matter what gets thrown at them, that they just will not accept leading a disappointed life. And for both male and female characters in your novel, that resonated so much with me, because I was reading your books while I was reading Augie, and I was like, it's the same thing. Like, just I don't care. Like, I'm not gonna. I'm tougher than that, And that sort of like that strand of hope that tough people have is something that I always like to have in my characters, because I find it a lot easier to love them. Or at least, no matter where they are, you got to find that toughness. You got to find that refusal to lead a disappointed life.
Interesting listening to you talk about your